Hello, Commissioner Casillas. Can you hear me?
Hello.
Oh, good. You unmuted yourself. I wanted to do a quick mic test. I saw you that you were on. Make sure that we could hear you.
Where did I go?
You did good. You unmuted. So when you're voting, you're going to want to unmute
Right.
so that they can hear your yay or nay. Jose, can you hear Commissioner Casillas in the boardroom?
Yes, Joanna, we can hear you guys loud and clear.
Okay.
We can see you, Commissioner Casillas, too.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Vicky Cavazos, interpreter, I see that you're there, but I only see, I don't know, a hand and an arm. Vicky Cavazos? Can you hear me? She must have her computer on mute. Good afternoon, Commissioner Lopez. This is Joanna talking to you from the sky.
That's a little weird, but okay.
Yes, I'm coming to you from the Zoom today.
Okay. Thank you for being here.
Absolutely. Just going to wait for everyone to get seated.
Yeah, they should be coming in. We need at least one more for us to start.
Okay.
Joanne, you can start us at 1 p.m. exactly. Thank you.
All right, will do.
These are perfect too, by the way.
We have Commissioner Casillas joining us also from the Zoom today.
Okay.
Doug said he may be a few minutes late.
Afternoon, everybody.
Hello, Commissioner Casillas. You can see us?
Yes, sir, I can.
Awesome.
All right, Commissioner Lopez, it is 1 o'clock.
Yep, go ahead and get us started.
All righty. Okay, welcome everyone to the San Antonio Housing Authority Operations and Real Estate Committee meeting. I'm going to start the recording now.
Recording in progress.
I can see a couple people making their way to their seats, so give it another couple seconds. All righty, recording has begun. Welcome again, everyone, to the San Antonio Housing Authority Operations and Real Estate Committee meeting. I'd like to remind everyone this is a hybrid meeting. We are on Zoom, and we have Commissioner Casillas on the Zoom, along with me from Zoom. If you need to have your voice heard, Commissioner Casillas, please remember to unmute. And if anybody is on the phone, on the call, please use *6 to mute and *6 to unmute yourselves as well. We also have the live transcript turned on. You can go to the bottom of your screen to manage that, should you wish to. And I will begin with the Commissioner roll call. Chairwoman Dr. Ana Cha Guzman. Present. Vice Chair Olga Kaufman.
Present.
Commissioner Gilbert Casillas.
Present.
Commissioner Dalia Contreras.
Present.
Commissioner Lauren D. Dantzler. Commissioner Gabriel Lopez.
Here.
Commissioner Ignacio Perez.
Present.
Board of Commissioner Attorney Doug Ponick.
I'm here.
You almost got a demerit.
President and CEO Edmund Sosa Jr.
I'm here.
And I do see Vicky Cavazos is present. Commissioner Lopez?
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Lopez, you can call the meeting to order.
I'll call the meeting to order. The Board of Commissioners or its committee may hold a closed meeting pursuant to Texas Government Code 551.071-076 for consultation concerning attorney-client matters, real estate, litigation, personnel, and security matters. The Board or committee reserves the right to enter into closed meeting at any time during the course of the meeting. Do we have anyone signed up for public comment?
No, we do not, sir.
Okay, we'll move to number 3, update and discussion regarding Alazan by the master planner, Able City.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Seema again. Good to see you this month. So I'm just going to give you a quick update on what's going on at Alazan Courts. So as you will remember, we have these 4 phases. The first phase, we should be wrapping up in the next couple of weeks by now the first week of May, and that's really what we consider the listening and learning phase. Not to say that we won't be listening and learning the whole process, but we really wanted to start the project off really trying to understand what all of the stakeholders, what the residents, what their needs are, what their history is in terms of the process and the project, and what perspective they bring to the table. So in the last couple of weeks, we've had some additional one-on-one stakeholder interviews, and these are usually kind of longer conversations. Sometimes they're an hour, sometimes they're 2 hours, really just as long as we need to really communicate and build trust and hear people out. And I think I'll point out this month that a number of folks we've met for the second and now third time. So some of those community advocates who are really passionate about the outcomes of this project, we want to make sure that we're available to them, that we can hear, that if they have issues that they feel like they can reach out to us and bring those issues to us directly, so that we can resolve them and talk through them, so that they don't come out in a public forum in the future, but really making sure that we can address the issues as they come along. So we've been having additional conversations with a number of people. I'm now in sort of text message communication with, I get notifications when things, if a meeting invite is, a date doesn't work, they'll let me know kind of on the spot. So we're sort of continuing to build those relationships. In addition, we are sort of preparing for getting into the design. So we have been engaging stakeholders around the historic preservation, from the Texas Historical Commission, the city, gathering information about sort of what all the requirements are for different, depending on what route we choose, so that when we present design options and we start having that conversation, we can really present the opportunities and challenges for every direction that we take, so that we're not pursuing a direction that's not feasible, or if the community wants to go in a certain direction, that we can really clearly communicate how hard it's going to be and what are the things that we're going to need to do to overcome those challenges. In addition, we're sort of building out, you can see a quick couple diagrams here of just our architectural model of the existing site, and just in preparation for getting into those design options, really trying to understand the existing conditions of the site. And then the last thing I'll talk about is we did, since the last time we met, we've started our door knocking campaign. So our goal is to knock all 501 doors at Alazan Courts. And I passed out some handouts, so it's a little bit small up on the screen, so you have them all on paper at your seats. So we've been in addition to having one-on-one conversations with people who are home and are open to speaking with us, we've developed this frequently asked questions sheet that really try and answer some basic questions about what the process is, so people don't feel intimidated by it, and they know how to contact us. And then we're also inviting residents to some upcoming meetings. So the second sheet is a handout really just for residents, which has the next 2 upcoming meetings and really more information about how they can engage over the course of the process. Your handout will have an updated date. Those meetings are going to be next Tuesday and then the following Tuesday on May 3rd. And then the last thing that we're kicking off, and this is with the broader community, starting some outreach to invite people to join both committees, but the audience will really be the community committee, and that meeting will be held on May 5th. And then I'll just give you, I have a couple of numbers here. So far in our first 4 days of door knocking, we've hit 195 doors. We've talked to 46 So it's about a 25% kind of success rate. And generally, people are really open to the conversation. They're grateful that we came to them, we came to their door, and there's a lot of conversation about maintenance issues and safety issues. But once we sort of get through that, they, people talk about wanting parks, and they talk about their units, and I think just kind of building that trust. We invite them to participate in the future meetings. 15 people have expressed interest in joining the committee, so hopefully we'll get some new voices to the table in the process. So that's my update, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you all might have.
Commissioners? Could you mention a couple of the stakeholder people that you've met with, like business or organizations? Or
Yeah, so we've met with, I have a couple of them here. We've met with the Esperanza Peace and Justice Center, the Mexican Civil Rights Institute. We've met with folks from UTSA. We've met with, I'm now trying to recall my list. There are a couple of, there's the Coalition for Tenants Justice, who's, that's the organization that's very active in the community. I've met with Kayla a number of times. A couple of these are some, Professor Castañeda and Dr. Christine Drennan are more academics who have done some research, and so we've been trying to learn from them. And yeah, I'm blanking on all, there's probably about 20 people that we've had these one-on-one conversations.
I'm looking at your 1.1 stakeholder interviews, and it says completed. So is that different from the people you're mentioning?
So these are the ones that we've completed since the last time we talked. So last month we had, additional ones. So I think it's about 20 people that we've had these one-on-one interviews with. And I can get you that full list.
I just have a comment on the Mexican Civil Rights Institute. Mm-hmm. That's the Mexican American Civil Rights Institute.
Oh, yes.
And it's easier if you just put MACRI, MACRI.
Yeah.
It's what it goes by.
Thank you. Yeah. Thanks for the clarification.
I think to Commissioner Pettis's questions, I don't know if you have like a tracker or somewhere. My big question is like, how deep are we getting into community engagement? Even with the door knocking, because the conversion rate's a little on the lower side, are we learning anything from that? Is it the time of day or the day of the week that we're door knocking? Since, when you said if you do get someone there, they're pretty open to talking to you all. So I think my brain is kind of around how do we feel about, are we hearing from enough community members? Are there overall numbers when you do these updates that we can see overall, here's how many families are being engaged and what we're hearing from them, and if there's anything that we need to be learning or shifting so that we can get to more folks?
So we've been door knocking from about 5:30 to 7 in the evenings, and actually found that if any earlier, you're just seeing people pull in, and we've, gotten a number of people like bringing in their groceries, and they said, come back later. And so that's, I from our experience, a 25% rate is actually pretty good in terms of, it's not just people, because there's some people that are just not going to talk to you. Even if they're home, they're not going to answer the door. But I think we are also going to, pick some times on the weekend and go back to, some, like if there's a bunch of houses that, had no answer, we'll try them on Saturday morning and Sunday afternoon. So I think we've been pretty happy with the conversations and the level of interest in the conversation. But we can, at the end of the phase, we'll sort of pull all the numbers together, and you can kind of see it all together.
With regards to your door knockers, have they already been distributed? Some of these items is this already been out there? Has there been any pushback with regards to the language? Like I noticed in one of the FAQs, you referred to you will be relocated, temporarily moving out. Have they been, because there was such a concern of you're going to move us out and we never come back or whatever. Has there been any kind of language to that? Or any concern, I should say, I mean.
Yeah, we've had a number of people when we, introduce ourselves, that's their first question.
Moving me.
Yeah, and when are we moving and what's going to happen? It's obviously a really important concern. And I think that, we've sort of been responding, kind of Saha's commitment when we, started this process and what we understand is that, we're going to phase the project so that there are not going to be too many units being renovated at one time. And that we're going to, the first option is going to be to relocate to a Saha unit in the neighborhood. And then they'll be invited back when their unit or when a new unit is ready. And that, for the most part, people, there's some people who are still a little upset that they're going to have to move at all.
Yeah, that's what I
but
was
most
wondering.
people understand that, if there's going to be a major renovation, the reality is that they're not going to be able to live through it. So.
Ed, are we seeing anybody coming to you or to staff? Or right now, it's kind of a wait and see type?
No, we haven't had any recent complaints on this area, and I think the engagement with the community members has helped a lot because they understand the process, so they are also providing feedback to residents. It's a very different situation from what it was a year
Correct, and
ago.
I'm just wondering of how much of that from the old situation, are they still going to be tentative on anything that we say? But if,
Yeah.
no, I guess the way that you guys have approached it have been good, so.
Yeah. And I will say that there has been, there are a couple people who still don't trust it. And they're like, well, I like what you're saying now, but I'm not quite sure and I'll wait and see. And, if the best you can do is, approach them again the next time, try and bring them into the process. And hopefully we can build that trust and over time.
Okay.
This is Commissioner Casillas. I kind of have the same concerns that Commissioner Contreras has as far as the amount of people that you all have actually talked to. Are you finding that people are not answering their doors, or they do answer and they don't want to talk to you?
For the most part, when someone answers their door, they're generally willing to talk. And I have, of the 195, we had 10 people who said, come back. My mom's not here. She's the person to talk to. Come back. And so we marked them down, and we'll return. And then it's hard to really, I've heard there's been a couple of instances where you could tell there was someone inside and they chose not to answer the door. I think we've all experienced a political person coming up to your door. Sometimes you don't want to talk to them. So, and I think we just have to respect that, some people are not going to want to engage. But yeah, for the most part, it's been pretty well received.
Now, does management give any notices that go on the door stating that you all are going to be coming during these hours or on these dates to let them know that you all are coming?
Yeah, so what I understand, they got all the residents got a text message saying that we were, going to be coming over the next few weeks. And then, we knock. If there's no answer, we leave the 2 flyers, the FAQ flyer and the upcoming events flyer. So even if we don't talk to them, I think the FAQ flyer is a nice introduction so that they, the next time they know a little bit about what's going on and maybe some confusion has been alleviated.
Have we included the neighboring homeowners, those that are not residents, but they're being notified too, right? Hey, we've got this town hall or some sort of meeting?
Yes, so far they've, the door knocking, we've focused on the residents of Alazan Courts themselves. And the broader community has been, it's more like the more general outreach, the big email list, social media, more sort of from like the PR side. of getting the invitations and notifications.
Right. I'm just wondering if, whether it be through Macro or Esperanza, because not all of their organizational members may not be residents.
Yeah.
But you get the influence of the neighbors just.
Yeah, and we've found, even for the first meeting, those groups have shared our meeting invites and information through their channels. And, last month we attended the historic West Side Residents Association meeting and gave a presentation. And so the more that we can get, there are a lot of organizations in the community that host their own meetings. So we're trying to, part of the reason why we're building these relationships is to get invited to share what's going on their turf.
Okay.
So we can kind of continue to build that outreach.
One last question I have was, I think at the last meeting, you all mentioned getting Youth Voice, and I think Sacy was going to be the partner. Was that on the completed list last time, or is that coming up?
So we have met with their ED and their program leads, and we're planning in the design phase to host a workshop with the Sacy students. And then also we've been talking to two of the teachers at Lanier, one who teaches a Mexican-American studies elective, and another one who teaches an architecture elective. And so we're, working with them to plan, some programming with them as well.
I think particularly organizations are important to include, and you might even think about the elementary school that serves Alazan Apache.
Yeah.
A lot of times you get more parents at elementary school PTAs, and you might want to present at a PTA meeting.
That's a great idea. Yeah, we'll look into that quickly, because I know the end of the school year is coming, so we'll definitely reach out.
Is this ISD on year round?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Yeah.
Are they on year round? Oh, they're not. Oh, okay.
No.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay.
Great,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move to item number 4, consideration and appropriate action regarding Resolution 6221. George Ayala, Director of Procurement. Joanna Alvarado, Director of Innovative Technology. Looks like George is coming.
Hello, good afternoon. I believe George is going to begin.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, Commissioners. As part of our current Wi-Fi expansion project, Saha requires the services of a vendor to provide a turnkey solution for 4 additional properties that have transitioned from third-party management companies to Beacon Communities. On January 12th of this year, Saha issued a request for proposals for turnkey Wi-Fi expansion for these additional properties, which closed on February 11, 2022. The RFP was published on Saha e-procurement website, the Heartbeat Narrow e-procurement website, and directly solicited to 20 vendors. A total of 2 proposals were received in response to this solicitation, and they were both of them were evaluated on the following criteria: experience, project management and implementation, quality control, price, strengths of the vendor's Section 3 program, and the strength of the SWIMBY utilization plans. After the conclusion of the evaluation, the committee is recommending a contract be awarded to Lakeway Security LLC as the highest rated qualified proposer. At this time, if you have any questions regarding the project, Joanna can go ahead and elaborate for us.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. This is a continuation of our Wi-Fi expansion project. These 4 Beacon Community properties were not part of the original RFP solicitation for the current project we're working on because they were still being privately managed. So we have incorporated these 4 properties for Beacon, which are Wood Hill, Cottage Creek 1 and 2, and Costa Valencia. We intend to continue, after this award, to continue on the project and bring those properties up to speed with our Wi-Fi expansion and providing the extended Wi-Fi. We are using we're still using our original $4 million budget for these properties, and the bandwidth has also been included as well for these properties in the original $4 million budget.
out of the 4 million, how much have we spent already?
That is a very good question.
2.5 million.
2.5?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Year to date.
So we'll be at about
Thank
3
you,
million
Diane.
after
See how
this.
Diana's passed her numbers?
Sorry.
What's 2.5?
Okay, so we've spent 2.5 million, and you're saying that we'll spend about 3 more, so we'll be a little bit over budget?
So we're at 2.5 million, and this is about another 500,000.
This
So
is
we'll be
about
at
400.
$3 million at that point.
Okay, but then what else will we have to do in order to do what we planned on covering all of the housing that we have with Wi-Fi?
I'm going to keep that back to Joanne.
I can't hear her. She could step up to the microphone.
Oh,
And the,
sorry about that.
So we are covering all of the Beacon, this final floor would be, all the current Beacon portfolio that we have and that we are, taking over and managing. We are also covering all of the public housing, properties as well. So anything that will be new will be anything that we add, at a later date. But we do think we're gonna be able to do the entire public housing and Beacon portfolio as it sits today with the 4 million.
There will be 4 additional properties in fiscal year '23 that will be coming back into management in the Beacon portfolio. And
Okay.
they will be complete, and it'll just be operating costs from then on.
Okay, so we'll be within the budget of the 4 million?
Yes, ma'am, it seems
Okay.
like it, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
What is the timeline we're looking at getting this complete, especially within the public housing communities, like the senior communities, on adding Wi-Fi to all the floors?
We continue to work on the project. We just got another, I want to say 6 properties up. So we're actively working that project. So there's a lot of work being done. We have about 63% of all the infrastructure in for the public housing and Beacon properties. The bandwidth is what is lagging behind, but it's being worked on as we speak. So every week now, we're getting more and more properties added.
Thank you.
So I'm shooting, just so you know, Commissioner Casillas, I'm shooting for getting the majority of them done by June 30th. I don't know if I'll be able to get all the bandwidth in, but I do think that all the infrastructure work will be done by June 30th.
Thank you.
So Joanna, what we have done is to get the Wi-Fi available to all of our tenants. So then the next step is, what does the tenant have to do to access that Wi-Fi? What approximately is the expense that the tenant has to do to access the Wi-Fi that we have installed for them?
So right now, we're doing an expanded design, which means it's like a public Wi-Fi, similar to what you get at a hotel or an airport.
Okay,
There's no cost to be able to access. It can be accessed. We have saturated the signal throughout the entire property, so it can be accessible anywhere in the property, including inside the home, from any device. There's no expense right now for the residents to be able to access. It is a public Wi-Fi, so it's kind of a first come, first serve, if you will, and they will get, probably the most bandwidth. But the idea was for us to, of course, saturate the signal at every corner of the property, so that no matter where you were, you could access the Wi-Fi.
So there is no logon required. They just have to select public Wi-Fi. Saha Public Wi-Fi is what it's called in this building, and you can connect any of your devices to that.
that's fabulous. And so then really, all we need to do is get the technology companies to get us more computers. Okay. So that's the piece that's missing, is to see how technology companies or companies who are getting new computers can give us their computers so that we can renovate them and give them to our tenants, because they're not having to pay anything for the Wi-Fi.
Right, and Joanna can talk a little bit about the program where we've received refurbished equipment and distributed it to tenants, but that's been ongoing for a few years now. Joanna, do you want to talk about that?
Yes, as part of the Connect Home program, we have a three-pronged approach to this. Connectivity is just one. The other is handing out devices and providing digital literacy education. Joel oversees the CDI, the Connect Home program, and he has some new people that are very energetic and are continue to educate our community. And they also have been able to get computers from Dell recently. The Dell engineers provided their refurbished laptops that were very nice. I believe there's 100 of them, and I think we're going to get another 100. I just heard the other day that Dell is doing that. So we're constantly out there talking to partners to get refurbished computers to continue giving out devices to our residents.
Yeah, I would like to have some sort of chart, made up of, now what percentage of our homes have Wi-Fi, and then start putting what percentage of our homes have technology in them for Wi-Fi, so that we can see the advances that we're making. Because I really think that would encourage the community. Dell has always been very generous with the public schools, with Saha. They really are generous. But I think that other companies might be encouraged to get 100% technology in all of the homes that we have. If we could show every month how we're increasing the technology available to our tenants.
Yes, we can do that.
We can do that.
We are collecting data actually of connectivity and connectivity service as we speak. So we can certainly come back to you with that information.
And we can also collect data of residents that are connecting with their own devices, because many people do have iPads or other types of tablets that they're connecting to our Wi-Fi.
Absolutely, yes.
Yes, the technology we put in can provide us a lot of that.
And the training also, the training that we've done, which we might want to include some of the board members, like.
We'll have to invite you to one of our literacy classes.
So we do have an item that needs, I guess, can I get a motion?
I move that we authorize the resolution 6221.
Okay.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, resolution 6221 passes. And we'll move to consideration and appropriate action regarding resolution 6232, authorizing the award of contract for concrete and asphalt maintenance. George, you're on tap again, yes.
Thank you, sir. So as part of the maintenance operation, SAHA requires the services of contractors to provide concrete and asphalt maintenance and repair services to its properties. Recognizing this need, on March 7th, SAHA had issued an invitation for bids for concrete and asphalt maintenance and repair that closed on March 29th. The IFB was published on SAHA's e-procurement website, the Heartbeat narrow e-procurement website, and directly solicited to 89 contractors. After conclusion, a total of 5 bids were received, which were evaluated on purchase price and the reputation of the bidders' goods and services. After evaluating all of the vendors, we are recommending that the contract be awarded to Albright Constructors of Texas Incorporated and Texas Asphalt and Maintenance, as they are the lowest price qualified bidders.
Have we worked with Albright before?
Yes, sir. We actually have a couple of contracts that we issued out to them.
Okay, so they're a known quantity for us.
I'm sorry?
They're a known company for us. We've
Yes,
used
sir.
them. Okay. Are there any other questions?
I move that we approve Resolution 6232.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution 6232 passes. Thanks, George. Consideration and appropriate action regarding Resolution 6237, authorizing the Los Vadas Public Facility Corporation multifamily sustainable tax-exempt mortgage-backed bonds. Lorraine Robles, I believe you are in place today. Yes.
Hi. Good afternoon, Commissioners. We're looking for final approval of the River Trails transaction this afternoon, and I want to be able to provide you with a little bit of history because this started a couple of years ago. But the developer for this project is Texas Housing Foundation. It's a regional housing authority, okay? So it's a housing authority like Saha. So in order for them to conduct business within the city of San Antonio, they reached out to both the city as well as Saha and asked permission to be able to work on 3 projects within the San Antonio area. Now, these 3 projects are existing developments that are already occupied, and they're looking to acquire and rehab them and preserve the affordable housing units that are within them. So River Trails is the second of the 3 projects that they brought to us. Back in May of 2020, this board approved and granted them permission to proceed with those 3 projects. The first one was closed last year in January. This one is due to close next month, about the 17th or 18th of May. And so that's why today we're bringing it to you for final approval.
Okay, that's one of the ones that are in this multicolor.
Yes.
Okay.
And so as we go through this,
Okay.
it'll be in the purple section, getting ready to go into final approval so they can start construction.
Okay.
And can we go to the next slide? And again, we just provided area median income and rent limits for your reference, and I think they were just recently updated, so we'll get you those for the next one. Next slide. It's located at 2914 Roosevelt. It's in South San Antonio. Next slide. It is within the Phase 1 Regional Center for the City of San Antonio in the Brooks area. Next slide. Thank you. It sits within City Council District 3 and is serviced by Southside ISD. This property contains 220 multifamily units. 50% of the units are at 50% of AMI and below. 50% are at 60% of area median income and below. Of those 220 units, 215 will have a HAP contract on them, so they'll be subsidized. We are only, this is important to note, we are only issuing bonds. We are not part of the ownership of this property. We have no financial obligation, and we'll be issuing up to $40 million in bonds. They have a total development cost of $57 million, as I mentioned. And again, the developer is Texas Housing Foundation. Do you have any questions?
And when we issue the bonds, they take on the responsibility for that debt. It is not ours. We're just facilitating the tax.
The way,
We're giving them the financial vehicle.
yeah,
That's
the
okay.
the way it is, Las Vadas in this case would serve as a conduit, but they are the ones that owe the money. If they go into default, they lose the property, it doesn't affect us.
Okay.
So the bonds just flow through Las Vadas, and they're the actual entity that owes the money.
And why are we involved?
We're the only ones that can issue the bonds.
The bonds.
Right, they can't
Right.
do that. Trust
Okay.
can't even do that, it's just us.
The county can also issue bonds,
Right.
but, we typically have used our entities, and there's a fee associated with that. Do you know the fee we'll be earning?
Yeah, for this one, it's $400,000. And Commissioner Guzman, this was part of the negotiation and part of the agreement for allowing them to do business within San Antonio, because it's our jurisdiction, was that we would issue the bonds for their projects, and that way we'd be compensated. And that's the only portion of the deal that we're involved in.
And the $100,000 come to us?
The 400,000, yes.
That's pretty good then. Okay.
Is this similar to other deals where there will be a buyback option down the road?
So on this particular deal, I don't know that we negotiated that. Again, we're only the conduit to issue the bonds. I believe the developer will have first right.
And that's already negotiated?
Yes.
That's in the past?
Yes, ma'am.
Where do you park that money? Ed? Where do you park that money?
In that closet.
We'll be reviewing that during the budgeting process. Diana's actually been,
Diana, she's over there.
and we've closed several of these this year, you will recall. And also, we've done some sales of properties that have generated some cash. So we have a good cash position right now.
Well, and Alasana Apache is going to take quite a bit of it.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion for 6237.
So moved.
Second.
We have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Resolution 6237 passes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ray. Item 7, consideration and appropriate action regarding Resolution 6233. Authorizing the official and legal name change to the Housing Authority of the City of San Antonio. Michael, good to see you
This
again.
is a big one.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. We're very pleased, if not very proud, to bring this resolution before you today. As you may recall, during our October and January board meetings, we shared the importance of our organization to plan for the future, especially as we bring our new organizational values to life, prioritize equity in our policies and operations, place emphasis on community and the families we serve under the leadership of our President and CEO. As I previously shared with you, and as you can see on page 4 of your handouts, titled New Brand Identity, SAHA was a product of the United States Housing Authority in 1937. The United States Housing Authority went on to be renamed as the Federal Public Housing Authority, and a number of years later, it was renamed the Public Housing Administration. And in the 1960s, it was rebranded to what we know now as the Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD. So even HUD, in a number of decades, had a transformation, but San Antonio Housing Authority in SAHA has remained in 1937. While the name, especially the word authority, was relevant for housing programs in the early 20th century, it certainly no longer reflects the housing practices or vision of a 21st century San Antonio. While we're proud of the good work SAHA has done during the last 85 years, the national housing policy of the 1930s reflects a different time in our country and in our city. The 30s and 40s represented a time of discriminatory housing policies in the federal level as part of the New Deal. For example, the Homeowners Loan Corporation created neighborhood maps with racial composition of neighborhoods and color-coded them with the color red and labeled them undesirable. We know this today as redlining. This affected neighborhood composition in San Antonio, and it has ramifications to this day. New Deal programs like the GI Bill provided billions of dollars for home ownership to citizens, but excluded people of color. These federal policies affected upward mobility and equitable housing for many in San Antonio. In short, the loss of generational wealth in our city is immeasurable. Again, this was the housing environment of the 1930s and 40s. We believe it's critical to look ahead, to look to the future, and make monumental changes to close this generational wealth gap and reach housing equity for those in our city. It's important to note that we're not alone. Housing authorities across the country are taking steps to look to the future, and their brand names reflect this, as you can see on page 5 of your packet. In Jacksonville, Florida, the housing authority there removed the word authority entirely and has rebranded simply as Jacksonville Housing. In Fort Collins, Colorado, the housing authority rebranded to Housing Catalyst. If you think of those words, housing catalyst, how innovative. In Utica, New York, the housing authority there is now called People First. Here in Texas, the Fort Worth Housing Authority was rebranded to Fort Worth Housing Solutions. In Portland, Oregon, the housing authority there is now called Home Forward. And the list goes on. Turning to page 6 of your packet now, as I shared in previous presentations before you, we should be proud of our 85-year history. In the course of nearly 9 decades, this organization gave generations of San Antonians an opportunity to live in a safe, stable, and affordable home, an opportunity to age in place with dignity, an opportunity to pursue home ownership, an opportunity for a better quality of life. Looking ahead to the next 85 years, our organization will continue to provide opportunities to generations more, and we should be proud of that. We hope you will support today's resolution to rename the organization to honor our past and position it for future generations. With that, allow me to once again introduce Creative Civilization and its principals, Gisela Gerard and Al Aguilar, who have offered their rebranding expertise in collaboration with our public affairs team. With the guidance and direction from our residents, our community, and our staff, Al and Gisela will present our collective recommendation to you for the new era of our organization.
Thank you, Michael, and good afternoon, Commissioners. Gisela Gerard and I and Creative Civilization are honored and pleased to help the development process of the project that Michael has described and to utilize our experience in having led similar brand processes, including the transformation of what used to be known for decades as City Public Service to what is known today as CPS Energy, and what used to be known for nearly 100 years as the Municipal Auditorium into what is now known as the Tobin Center for the Performing Arts. Similar to those processes, the San Antonio Housing Authority Public Affairs team, along with Creative Civilization, have followed a thoughtful, thorough process of key phases that began with community outreach communications, understanding insights gathered, which we refer to as the discovery phase. It all began with discovery and dialogue. That dialogue included the discovery and discussion of key words, what they mean and how they are interpreted, and as it relates to the mission, work, and operations of SAHA. The discussions were held with diverse constituents, including residents, community-based organization partners, including Communities in School, SAGE, Haven for Hope, Avenida Guadalupe, Sam Ministries, and Avance San Antonio, along with staff of the San Antonio Housing Authority. On page 8, you will see a range of key words that were discussed, ranging from words like compassion to solutions to community and numerous others. On page 9, we illustrate 3 key word insights that rose to the top of importance. Number 1, home is preferred versus housing or house. Opportunity and aspiration to succeed is a way of life, and seeking a path or direction is desired. These insights were communicated with sincerity and oftentimes with deep emotion, particularly from our residents. From a brand development process, we also identified key attributes that are important in this brand process. On page 11, you will see what we refer to as the gotados, otherwise known as got-to-dos. What are the got-to-dos in terms of this brand communication? Our brand, first and foremost, has got to be meaningful. It's got to be marketable, sustainable, ownable, transformative. These are all important brand attributes to achieve. On page 12, there's further description of what we learned about the meaning of the word opportunities. It's meaningful to all of the various different groups that we spoke with. Our families believe in an opportunity for a better future. Our staff believe in an opportunity to serve as public servants. And our community believes in an opportunity to make a lasting impact. In addition, a part of the SAHA brand identity has been our tagline, "Opportunity lives here." It's part of our heritage of who we have been historically. The other important discovery was the affinity, the deep affinity to the word home. On page 13, you will see how the word home means so much more to our residents than the term house or housing. A home means comfort, family, safety, and aspiration. So with that, we are pleased to introduce the brand recommendation on page 15, Opportunity Home. Opportunity Home, San Antonio. And on the following page, you will see the recommended tagline, a community of possibilities. On page 17, you will see a narrative that further describes the brand name and tagline as it relates to fulfilling the mission and values of compassion, excellence, and equity. Page 19 offers the research and selection of recommended colors for the new brand name. Yellow, which is associated with hope and aspiration. Blue, which is associated with trust, knowledge, and commitment. And the color cyan, which is associated with calm and safety and comfort.
So on page 20, you'll see that the recommended brand logo, which integrates both the brand name and the visual image together. That symbolism of shapes and colors form a sense of community, kind of like a master plan of a subdivision or a residential community that's composed of cul-de-sacs, avenues, and also is very contemporary and artistic and appealing. The final pages offer a look at how the brand name and logo will be communicated in different applications in the environment where they'll reside. You'll see renderings of it on buildings, signage, business cards, and how it will be communicated through a launch with billboards, print ads, and digital ads. Finally, we'd like to share with you that the phased process includes not only an internal launch, but also an external launch. Events such as a Children's and Family Day at the Museum, seniors dance events with corporate partners locally as part of a launch of a new brand and a new era. Communications with both the mayor and elected officials, community influencers, as well as communications with HUD are all included in this very comprehensive pre-launch phase. So with that, thank you very much.
Madam Chair? Our turn. Thank you. It seems like you've done excellent work, your team from Creative. And the other day, Gabe and I had a chance to look at your presentation or part of it, and I think we're if not there, we're certainly on the right track. And being picky as I am sometimes, you can't help but notice on the news every day the issue of Ukraine. And when I saw those colors, I thought of that. And I said, well, perhaps if the yellow was darker or richer, it would kind of distinguish from what we're seeing every day on TV. And I noticed on the door in your picture here, on the door to the building, it seems darker and richer. And for what it's worth, if I had a preference, that's what I would do.
I have a question about Spanish translation. I know with Saha for Spanish speakers, you just say Saha, right? And everybody knows what that means. How will Spanish speakers refer to Opportunity Home, and will we translate the subtext, a community of possibility, and if so, what will that be translated to?
All of the brand narrative and the brand name will be treated very carefully with what we describe as transliteration, not literal translation, so that it is meaningful and understandable. What we have found historically with brands is that as Spanish speakers, they are accustomed to don't mess with Texas, and they understand what that means, and it's other brands as well. So we think oportunidad and opportunity are close enough for people to understand the meaning of that. and home is also a word, but we think all of that is also very understandable in terms of the primary name. How we treat the communication in Spanish is going to be crafted very, very carefully from a Spanish language, Spanish dominant perspective, so that it is relevant and meaningful of all of the things that we're describing about this brand. So we'll be taken, great care will be given.
And I know we talked about this in our one-on-one too, but I didn't know if you all had found any other information about the accessibility for visually impaired of the home logo, seeing that it's like when you look at it, it's very artistic, right? So you can see it, but you maybe can't see it also. If they're
Very good. And there's consideration still with Michael and his team of how we're continuing to, as you say, fine-tune we appreciate your comments, sir, and Commissioner, and all of those comments that you share with us are continue to evolve and reaching that point so that we address those really good. Yes, Ms. Commissioner.
I have the same comment about the color on home, and
Turn your mic on, we can't hear you.
okay, I have the same concern about the home, the colors in home and the way it's set up. And I think you're right. It has to do, maybe it has to do with eyesight, because I have really bad eyesight. So when I look at it, it's hard for me to find the home. And I think it's because the colors are just sort of all over the place, including the yellow. I think totally throws me off on it. I think Commissioner is right. The Commissioner is right that it needs to be darker or richer, or so that it can sort of look where the yellow is, you can still figure out the letters.
Good, very good. We will take that in consideration. There are some, what I call iterations of this treatment that have been given. Some of them have a border on the top and a border on the bottom that kind of brings a little bit more closure to it, while still maintaining, as you say, that artistic feel and the values that we want to communicate with this nice logo. So I think all of these that's a very good point in terms of making it easier, and perhaps that horizontal lines on the top and bottom will make it project a little bit easier for visual.
Would you be able to have the iterations before the board meeting when we do the final approval?
Dr. Guzman, we're happy to provide the iterations, and I think from our perspective, we were looking for something sustainable, back to the Al's mentions of the got-to-dos. So something that's going to survive in the future, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years from now. And so I think that was our perspective as well, but we can certainly look at the darker colors to make it easier on the eye. And we can provide that as soon as this week.
The other thing, when I spoke with them, is that I didn't know if there should be an Inc. or an org or an LLC or something that would signify that this is the organization in San Antonio that is the federal representative for housing. I was surprised when I went to Washington, D.C. for the San Antonio, Washington trip, how many organizations are in San Antonio that deal in housing. I mean, there's like 10 or 12. And so with that in mind, I didn't know if there should be an Inc. or something that would give us, and so we were going to give that one to Douglas to see what kind of message you could put at the end that would give it an organization or an org or something that would make it more official.
I was going to say, hopefully, our rollout will include that, because the intent is to move away from San Antonio Housing Authority. I wonder if we put LLC, then all of a sudden, and again, I'm just using that, it could be org or whatever, but all of a sudden, we become an entity versus a community. And I think that's what I liked about the Opportunity Home, is that it made us now one of them,
One of whom?
the community, versus we're not the entity, we're not the governmental.
But we are.
We
We
are,
get $7
well, we are,
million
and they'll know that by the rollout, but what we don't want is, or at least how I looked at it, is that I don't want them to, San Antonio Housing Authority became a concern 3 years ago within, let's
Right,
let's
but
pick it.
we are deemed by the federal government and responsible for providing housing to the community. I mean, we are an organization responsible to the community. We are not them. We're not the community. We are a responsible organization that is deemed and chosen by the federal government, and we are appointed by the mayor. And so I think that that's really, that those responsibilities are really important to convey, because we're the only one in many, and I didn't realize how many organizations were dealing in housing, and yet we were the ones that were established, that the federal government funnels the money, and hopefully the bond will funnel the money because we are the ones that were established municipally and federally. And I think that that's really an enormous responsibility that we have, that makes us unique and apart, and much more responsible to the community.
Outside of authority, we can't say we're an LLC, because we're not an LLC.
No,
or
so
something like
that's
that.
an issue right there. So you have state law that says
What could we be?
well, so that's maybe a conversation that probably will take a little time, but
Okay.
to represent yourself as an LLC or something like that, there's a specific law in the state of Texas
Okay.
that says certain entities can represent themselves that way. They have to register with the Secretary of State. But you're a governmental entity to begin with, so it
Right.
would be a misrepresentation, in my view, to say you are an LLC.
Right, I didn't care about it.
Right.
It should be an org or or something
Right.
that conveys that we're an organization, we are governmental agents.
Correct. So the other concern is that you don't want to confuse the public or confuse parties that deal with you as to your governmental status. You don't
Right.
want to represent to anyone
Right.
that you are something less than the governmental entity that you are, which enjoys statutory immunities and all
Exactly.
of those kinds of things. So I think the threading of the needle is using a word that achieves what it is you wanted to achieve in terms of making yourself distinctive in the community of housing entities that do work in this regard, but not misrepresenting
Exactly.
in violation of state law, or in a way that perhaps HUD itself would say, we're not comfortable with your representation of yourselves in this way that
Right.
isn't consistent with your status as a public
Right.
entity.
Right.
So
That'll be your.
I don't have the word for you now, but I would think.
That'll be your job.
You're right, if you can be mindful of the fact that we've got those concerns, right?
Yes.
Has HUD has received this, from a temporary standpoint, like, what are you, because they've weighed in, I should say, is maybe my question.
No.
Yes, they've been informed along the process. They know our timeline. They're expecting a vote from us, and then we're expected to notify them of a new name. So that way, all the financial accounts, all the paperwork can be processed.
Okay.
It'll take a number of months. It's not going to happen overnight.
Right.
And so as soon as we inform them, then they can begin that process. But they are aware of it.
And so if they would have had pushback, they've already told us.
Yeah.
They would have mentioned something.
already.
So
I have
maybe,
two-
maybe they would have, maybe they can give us some idea whether it's not necessary, or a word that we could use that would signify that we're a deemed organization.
Yeah,
I have
think you
two
want
reflections.
Okay.
I think that there seems to be, like, when you talk about the word sustainability and the namesake of the organization, this is a national movement, right? And the examples that you shared nationally, the HUD connected housing authorities are going through a name change that's going to drop a lot of that formal hierarchical power facing terms like authority. And so I think it's in alignment with this kind of move towards names that better represent what we hope to, how we hope to behave and our values. I would say the other thing is, I don't know that, I hear what you're saying, Chairwoman, about like the legitimacy of the organization and our role as a federal entity. And it makes me wonder, like, do we achieve that through our namesake, or do we achieve that through our behaviors and how the community experiences us? And I'm not necessarily convinced that not having some sort of designation in the name would not allow us to still have that legitimacy in San Antonio if we have a strong enough rollout of the branding. And then also, I think that will be that name that gets represented, and then how we behave and how people experience us is where we will have our legitimacy built.
Okay.
I think.
Yeah. I think if we have a discussion with HUD and Douglas, you research it, I would be fine. But I just think it's important that if we're an organization that receives federal funding, that receives municipal funding, that receives the funding, that we are that we represent it. And I have always thought that it would be good to represent it in the name, but if that's not necessary and HUD doesn't think it's necessary, I'm fine with that. But I think we need to research that in some way.
I have a few comments to make. Number one, if HUD had a problem with this, I don't think the other entities would have been changing their names in the past couple of years and pulling away from the name of Housing Authority. There are several cities that have made this change, and they have happened in the past few years. And I think if there was an issue with it, HUD would have already probably said something. Number two, I kind of like, as a resident, I kind of like getting away from Housing Authority. It gets away from the stigma that, we're the Housing Authority. We're still going to be that organization that monitors and provides housing for Bexar County and San Antonio. I like the word home, and when they presented this to me last week, I mentioned it because a lot of times when I've had conversations with management and I've had conversations with Brandy and Zach and everything, I always spoke that this is my home. It's not housing, it's not my apartment, this is my home. And I used to tell the managers, you need to respect people here. You're in our home. And I kind of like that word is there. That was one of the key words that I had picked out. Opportunity, I kind of feel that, it is an opportunity for residents, but we need to live up to that, and we need to make sure that we continue to give the opportunity to the people we serve. We need to make sure that the opportunity for clean, sustainable homes are there for the individuals that we serve, and not just call it that and then, forget that the opportunity is there. I kind of agree a little bit with some of the colors, like putting a border around maybe the blue going all around and boxing it in may have the home stand out a little bit more. I'd like to see those changes and the art concepts to come forward to us before we actually take a vote next month on this, but that's my opinion.
Thank you very much. I would like to just add one additional comment that came to mind. One of the important lessons I've learned through the many years of being involved in helping build brands throughout the country. A relationship is much more than a logo or a tagline, as we all know. It's a relationship. A brand is a relationship. The relationship we have with the brand of the automobile that we drive or the place that we shop, do our grocery shopping. It's more than a logo, it's a relationship. And I think the type of care that we want to give, thanks to your feedback and evolving the treatment of the logo and the messaging and how it will be done in a very constructive manner, that we have an opportunity really to build that brand relationship in a much stronger way. So we feel really good about that. So thank you very much.
I move that we approve Resolution 6233.
I second.
We have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Resolution 6233 passes. Good job. Do we have any residents' concerns?
We don't have anything to report from staff at this time.
Okay. Mr. Doug, can you move us into closed?
The board will now be convening in closed session to discuss real estate and consult with its attorney under sections 551.072 and 551.071 regarding Beacon Communities, Rosemont at University Park, and the Ravello Apartments. The board will also be discussing personnel and consult with its attorney under sections 551.074 and 551.071 of the Texas Government Code regarding the President and CEO performance evaluation process. The time is now 2:10.
Commissioners, we'll be meeting in the other room, and I just wanted to point out that we have representatives here from Rosemont at University Park and the Ravello Apartments. If you could raise your hands or stand.
Okay.
Thank you for coming today.
Will they be in the?
No, they won't.
Okay.
I just wanted to introduce them since they won't be in the room.
Okay. And I know what are their positions with the University Park? Are they the developer or? Oh.
Commissioners, it's Logan Schmidt and Tim Sturgis from Growers Company, which is the company that's tending to acquire Rosemont University Park.
Okay. Thank you guys for being here. So we're going to the boardroom now.
Oh.
Recording stopped.
Ed, will we be able to adjourn from there, or do we need to come back in here?
Again, need to take action.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. Oh, yes. Oh, we have to take action? Okay, never mind. Answer my question. Coming back here. Correct. We're gonna go over there and then come back.
Sí, para que no se oye. Exacto. Don't mess with my tortilla.
Thank you.
Hi, Oren.
Yes, I got your chat.
Okay. I shouldn't be in the breakout, and I should not be able to hear.
Testing. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Nope.
check.
I'm back.
Recording in progress.
We lost a few on the way back. They're coming in here second. I think they went to the little commissioner's room.
We see and hear you, Commissioner Casillas, on the Zoom.
I'm here.
Yeah, we are missing two that will come back in shortly. Here comes one. And we can wait for Commissioner Kaufman.
She's washing her hands.
Okay, she'll be right here. So coming back from closed session, we have two items. The first of which is
The Beacon Community Surge. So we have Tom Roth?
no. The Beacon was actually.
I'm sorry, the Rosemont at University Park.
Rosemont at University Park.
Apologize.
The Rosemont University.
Is it on? There you go, thank you.
On the Rosemont at University Park, what was discussed in closed session was issuing a inducement resolution for bonds not to exceed $30 million, and also to partner with the Rowers Company to acquire the property and issue new tax credits.
Okay.
Tom, this is the resolution, is it the resolution that was handed out, 6231?
Yes, and there's a component resolution for Las Fadas Public Facility Corp.
Right, and so does this one require an adjustment on the number that was reflected in the resolution?
Yes, that's the one that,
Well, what is the number that you're,
$30 million.
that is really the true number that you
Yes.
would be asking support
Correct.
for? And again, this is to be made official at the next meeting. This is just asking the board to recommend that it be considered officially at the next meeting.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll, with regards to Resolution 6231, and increasing the inducement to the 30 million that will come before the board, I need a motion for approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The Rosemont at University Park resolution passes. Then we have a second item regarding Ravello Apartments.
Yes, Commissioner. For Ravello Apartments, it was a discussion of Saha, or entities controlled by Saha, acquiring all of the limited partnership interest in the property, so that Saha would control 100% of the ownership of the Ravello Apartments,
For an amount not to exceed,
not to exceed 1.1 million.
and refinancing of the debt at a later date. Can I get a motion for approval? Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The resolution with regards to Ravello Apartments can move forward.
Thank you.
Yay. Then,
Those are the only items requiring action from the board out of closed session. I know you have one report item, but I think that's just for information.
It's just informational, so the board can read that at their leisure and
question.
send us any questions.
All right. Then, motion for adjournment?
Motion to adjourn.
I so move.
All in favor? All right, meeting's over. See y'all in 2 weeks. Thank you, Ms. Muriel, for printing that earlier.
Recording stopped.
Okay. Do you want to take your computer with you?